All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Monday. How's the weekend? Good? Yeah? Relaxing? Fun? Weather was pretty nice, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah? You got outside?
Yeah.
Yeah? Fresh air? I got a little bit too much sun on the back of my neck here, as you can probably see, but it's okay. Anything you want to talk about before we jump in, or no? No? Okay. Let's say good morning to some people here. So Reza's here. Good morning, Reza. Hamad is here. Good morning to you, Hamad. Sean is here. Good morning, Sean. Awais is here. Good morning. And Simran is here. Good morning, Simran. Hassan is here. Good morning, Hassan. Basil's here. Good morning, Basil. And Basil's here as well. Good morning to you. Okay. So, oh yes. Yes. So last week we had kind of left behind the theoretical framework part of this course. We talked a little bit about critical theory and how we wanted to make sure we paid attention to the meaning that was given to certain information, and the idea that sometimes, good morning, Ryan, sometimes knowledge is counterintuitive. We're kind of putting that behind us, and we're going to move on to culture and socialization. And we started that last time. We started that on Friday, talking about what culture actually is. And what did you tell me? Because you told me all kinds of different things about culture, and you were correct. But what did you tell me about what culture was? Beliefs? Shared beliefs, yeah. Right, behaviors, yeah. What else? Shared beliefs, behaviors. The whole iceberg thing? Yeah, and what was, do you remember, do you remember what the point of the iceberg graphic was? Right, very true. Yeah, Rafay.
Is it like an ideology created by the society that we have to live with, or we have to follow?
It's probably one, yes. It's probably one in which a bunch of other ideologies kind of fit into it. And so culture might be like the grand ideology, if you will. But ideology is kind of almost too simple a word to describe what culture is, because it's so important to humans. It's so complex, and it varies through time and through space and across the world. And so I think you're correct in saying it's an ideology, but it's so much more than that as well. But yeah, that's what you told me, right? You said it was all of these beliefs and values and behaviors and ideologies that are all wrapped up, and they sort of pattern the way that we interact with other people and that we interact with the world at large, right? And I said that culture, again, was super important for humans because we're not really born with any innate behaviors, right? We don't have a lot of things that are kind of pre-wired into our brain, right? If you've ever seen a baby cow or a baby horse being born, they come out of mom and they're all kind of slimy and gross, but they're kind of standing up on their feet within minutes, right? And then they're running around, and then they're, drinking from their mother, kind of thing. And they kind of almost instinctively know how to do these things immediately, right? And they happen really quickly. But of course, for humans, a human's born, and how long does it take before a human can walk? 7, 8 months, yeah, if they're quick. Yeah, sometimes a little bit longer. And even when they start walking, they're pretty awkward, right? They're pretty slow, they're pretty awkward. They keep falling down and don't move very fast, and it takes them actually quite a while to gain proficiency with that skill, right? Whereas the baby horse or cow is, they're a little awkward, for the first few minutes, but then they're moving around really quite quite well. And so, this is not the best example maybe, but humans don't have a lot of behavior ready pre-wired, right? In a way, we're kind of born early. Because our brains are so big, and those brains have to pass through the pelvic architecture of a woman, our babies actually have to get born kind of too early, right? Because if they continue to grow their huge brains, they would never get out, right? And so we kind of have to get them out before they're fully developed, and then they kind of do a lot of their growing after that, right? And so we have babies that are, that are small, that are helpless, and take a lot of care in order to make them not even self-sufficient, but just, able to move around and eat on their own, right? That takes a lot of time and work and parental investment. So I made this analogy where, human beings were kind of like, our bodies and our minds are kind of like the hardware, right? And culture is the software. It's what gets downloaded into us for, years and years and years, decades, and maybe to the point where it actually never stops, right? Maybe our cultural system is continually being upgraded, right? As new ideas appear, new ways of doing things appear, we're kind of rewriting our software, right? But I also pointed out that this isn't the best metaphor, because for humans, the software actually changes the hardware, right? The learning of things actually changes the architecture of our brain, particularly when we are young, right? So it's kind of a very interesting thing, and it's something that we saw on Friday. The sociologist Emil Durkheim was saying that humans need to be socialized in order to be fully human, right? And so in a way that has to do with our behavior, but also in how our brains are wired. We actually need to be taught culture. We need to be socialized in order to sort of become everything that we kind of think humans are, right? We need that socialization. Sorry, my nose is just itchy. Okay. Right, so this process of enculturation is where we learn all of these beliefs and values and norms and right and wrong ways of doing things, right? Right, we saw that definition. This is from Friday, so don't panic. I'm just going to pop through it. Here's the iceberg graphic, of course. And the other thing I wanted to point out with the iceberg graphic is that, again, yes, some things are more visible about culture. Yes, some things are less visible. But also, the deeper you go, the more emotional investment people have in those ideas, right? And the stronger that they feel that those ideas are naturally the way things are, right? They reflect some kind of way in which the universe are, or the way in which people are. Some kind of like universal truth is reflected in those ideas, right? We'll get to that later. Yeah, that's the other part of this graphic. We talked about socialization on Friday as well, right? And we said that, depending on whether you're an anthropologist or a sociologist, you might use one term or the other. Enculturation and socialization are, for our purposes, they're the same thing. I'll probably use socialization more often because this is more of a sociology course, but same deal, okay? Let's see. Right. The other thing that's important to know about socialization, I think this is an Irving Goffman thing. Nope. Is that right? Yeah. He had this idea about us performing roles, right? So all of us kind of go out into society every day. We get dressed, we get cleaned up, we go out, and we kind of perform a role, right? And so sometimes we're performing the role of friend, sometimes we're the role of daughter or son, sometimes we're in the role of girlfriend or boyfriend, sometimes we're in the role of teacher or student, right? All of us are kind of composed of different identities and different roles, and we kind of perform those for other people every day, right? Here I am sitting up here performing the role of teacher, right? There you are performing the role of student, right? And you know what that role entails, right? You know what a student is supposed to do, right? You know what a teacher is supposed to do. And so you're going to try to conform to that role, right? And you're also going to expect me to conform to it as well, right? You know what a teacher should be and should do, and you expect me to kind of be those things and do those things, right? And hopefully hopefully I'm succeeding in fulfilling that role, right? Oh, right, okay. So before we go any further, I have some video I want to show you that might be amusing. But first, I want to ask you to read just a short section of our textbook and answer some questions, okay? So the textbook itself is in Microsoft Teams. And so if you go to our social justice team and you go under files, you should see a folder or actually it's right in files, and it says Introduction to Sociology. It's a PDF. And so if you click on it, it will show up, and then you can go to the correct page. Now I just want to check and make sure that because I've said here page 64 to 67, and I think those are the pages of the PDF, not of the book itself. But let me just open it and find out. All right. So let me see what I did here. So page 64. Elements of culture. Yes, okay. So the page 64 refers to the page of the PDF, not the page of the textbook, okay? So if you read that section, answer these 3 questions, and then we'll talk about them, okay? So I'll put some time on the clock here so that we can read. Okay. I think that should be okay. Question for you: how easy of a read is that? Is this text on a scale of 1 to 10? So 10 being, yeah, this is really easy, and 1 being, oh God, this is really hard. 5. What else? Good morning. What?
8.
About an 8. Okay. We're at
3 maybe?
3. So it's a tough read.
No,
Oh, the other way?
Yeah.
Easy? Okay. Okay, that's good because the text is a university level text. So if you took Sociology 100, you would read a textbook kind of like this. So it's a little bit above where we are, but that's okay. So if it's a slightly challenging read, that's fine. If it's not too challenging, then that's good, right? Because that's a university text. Let's talk about some of the things they pointed out here because they will be important to us a little bit later on. So, first question I have for you here is the difference between values and beliefs. So, what does the text here define as a value?
Values are a culture standard for discerning what is good and just in society.
Yeah. So values help a society decide what is good and what is bad, right? So all of our cultures have values, right? Things that they think are important and things that they think are not. Probably a number of those things overlap for many of our cultures. Some of them might be a little bit different. Can you think of a cultural value? What kind of things are important or good or desirable in your culture? Let me start off and maybe I'll give you an example and it'll help you. So here in Canada, I would say, I'm not positive, but I would say that one of the things that Canadians value is being polite. I would say that, and you may disagree with this because of course all these things are culturally relative. But my impression is that Canadians are ultra polite, right? They're always saying hi to people and they're holding doors for people and they're saying sorry for things even though they didn't do anything, and they're very polite and apologetic in all cases, right? So that's a cultural value, right? We value being nice to other people, right? We value being polite or even over polite, right? That of course doesn't mean that everyone is that way, right? Certainly not all Canadians are polite all the time, but in general, I think this is, in my opinion, this is a cultural value. What are some other cultural values that we might know about?
In my culture, people value status and money.
Status and money, right? So, well, and I think in Canadian culture as well, right? We value having money, right? That's an important thing. People who have a lot of money, we look up to them, right? We don't say, oh, those people are horrible, right? What do you mean, Rafay, what do you mean by status?
Like being powerful, having contacts, people talk to you, respect.
Oh, okay, so people respect you, right? People are, yeah, like think of you highly kind of thing. Okay, those things are important. Okay, that's good. Reza here says, so worship, right? So the practice of attending to your religious beliefs or the tenets of your religion, right? That's an important cultural value, right? So religiousness itself is important. And paying, well, I don't know. Here, I can't speak for Reza. Here in Canada, the government or paying tax isn't really a value. It's just something we have to do. But if but if that's a cultural value for you, then fantastic. But what's that?
Is paying tax considered as a more norm?
Well, I guess so, right? I guess it's I guess it's I guess so. I guess it's kind of a formalized norm, right? That we, that it's a law that we follow. You have to pay, right? Maybe just one or two other values you could think of. Say that one more time, sorry. Family. Okay. How so? Explain that if you can. Right. Right. So that's kind of it's almost a different. It's kind of a spectrum, right, between being individualistic and kind of only thinking about yourself, and then having a more collective mindset, right, where you think more about the group. And every culture is kind of somewhere on that spectrum, right? So the Americans are very individualistic, right? They're very interested in, you do you, everyone's independent, you have to work your way up on your own kind of thing. And then there's a lot of cultures that are very collective, right? You're part of the family, you're part of the community, you're part of the religious community, part of the country, right? And that's the more important thing, right? So putting the needs of the group before the needs of yourself that's a value, right? And that varies depending on what culture you go to, right? Some again are more individualistic, some are kind of more collective, right? One more value. What's that?
White people is more power,
White people.
have more power than.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that a value? Is that a value?
I don't think so.
It might be a reality, right? It's not yeah, I don't know if it's a value. I think it's but?
But people believe that, like, but that is not true.
Oh.
People
Is it a?
I don't think that's a value. I think that's more of a stereotype.
Well, we'll get to that very soon too. I'm not even sure it's a stereotype. I think it's a power dynamic. I'm not sure about that one. That's a tricky one. Like you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I'm just wondering if you would call it a value or not. Let me press pause on that and think about it, because that's a complicated one. That's a complicated one. As I say, you're not wrong, but yeah, that's it. Okay, I'm gonna come back to. I'm gonna think about that one. What's a belief?
Believe in the principle that people consider to be true.
Yeah, something that people consider to be true. People in a society consider to be true. And so, what do they mention here in the textbook as an example of that?
Money,
What's the American? The what? Nothing. What's the example of a belief here?
The American dream.
Right. And what is the American dream?
Anyone who works hard enough will be successful.
Right. So there's this idea that if you just work hard, you will be successful. If you're not successful yet, you're not working hard enough, right? You've got to work more, right? That's a belief that the Americans kind of hold to be true. Do you think that belief is true? Kind of. How? What percent true do you think that belief is? 50%? Okay.
Like, wouldn't it depend on the person? Like, someone who is from that region?
Um.
Is born in that place? Like I said, it's an American dream. So
Well, I guess yeah. I guess what I might be asking is, do you think that's true for all Americans? Mm-mm. It's not. Um, I, we'll come back to this question later, but yeah, I think you're right to be suspicious of this belief, right? It is in fact not so true. But Rafay, you're also correct in that it depends on where you go, right? Because in some places, your hard work will get you more, right? Your hard work is more tied to what you can achieve. In other places, other things will come into play, right? So you're correct there as well. What's another example of a belief? Something a culture believes to be true. Sorry, Victoria? Yeah, so religions are collections of beliefs, right? And religion is kind of an aspect of culture. It's kind of its own thing, but it's also somewhat cultural. Yeah, and there's all kinds of beliefs about, how the universe was created and what the nature of the universe is and what sort of supernatural powers exist and what's their nature, right? All of those are religious beliefs, right? Rafay, what were you going to say?
Earth is flat.
What's that?
Earth is flat. That's
Oh.
a belief of some people, right?
Yeah, exactly, right? So the belief that the earth is flat or that the earth is round, right? Either of those are beliefs that we have. Can you think of one more, maybe? One more cultural belief? Hmm. That's okay.
Aliens, maybe?
What's that? Aliens? That they exist?
Aliens run the world, actually.
Sure. Okay. Maybe the existence. I don't know if that's a cultural belief. It's a personal one. I don't know. Are there like cultures that actively believe in aliens?
I have one more belief.
Okay.
But I don't know the word in English, but I will try to explain.
Sure.
If your parents take care of you, and when time by time you pay them back, then your life will be good, like really good, because for example, you pay them back one time,
Right.
the life will pay back you 10 times.
Ah.
That
Oh.
is the belief in my country.
I understand. Yeah. So I guess that has to do with our our kind of responsibilities toward our parents, right? Do we, your parents give birth to you, they raise you, they support you, and when you're old enough to kind of be out there on your own, I guess the question is, do you owe them anything? Right? Like, do you have to somehow pay them back, right? Are you expected to take care of them in their old age, or are you expected to take care of them immediately, right? Does the care relationship kind of flip immediately, right? Or, is everyone kind of independent, right? And does everyone take care of themselves? That's a cultural value, right? In terms of, or a cultural belief. Well, actually, it's a belief and a value. There's multiple things, right? The importance of elders, right? And then, how do you, what will be the result of you kind of paying back your parents, right? Or giving back to them after they've given to you, right? Yeah, that's a good one. How do people, this is interesting, how do societies encourage people to act according to cultural values and cultural norms? How do we get people to go along with these
There are
ideas?
rewards and there are punishments.
What's that?
There are rewards and there are punishments.
There are rewards and there are punishments, right? So what is a social reward? Thank you.
A good gesture.
A what?
A good gesture.
A-
Good response.
Okay, so someone might respond to you positively, right, in some way. How might someone kind of respond to you positively? Thank you is a good one.
Smile, being appreciated.
They might smile at you. They might be appreciated. What? Alika, did you or no? Say again. Sure, people may be nice to you or extra nice to you. What else?
You might can connect each other more easier.
Right? So people might sort of connect with you more easily or make friends with you, right? They may want to talk to you, right? They may kind of go out of their way to talk to you.
Things are respect. They might respect you.
Yeah, they might give you respect, right?
Acknowledgement.
Yeah, they might acknowledge you, right? All of those things, right? And very and what I want you to, and I'm glad you're kind of naming all these things, because one of the things I want to point out is that, you know, a lot of the rewards and punishments that exist in society are not big ones, right? It's not like, you know, a punishment is not like, oh, going to jail, or a reward is not like, oh, we'll shower you with gifts or something like that. They're not often huge things. They're often small things. They're very subtle things, but they are incredibly effective with modifying human behavior, right? And again, that's because we're social animals, right? We want to be accepted by the group, right? We want other people to accept us, right, and include us in the group. And when we are excluded, it's uncomfortable, right? And speaking of which, what are some punishments that society might use?
Shameful, like they shame you.
They might shame you, yeah. What's that? I can't hear you, Andre.
Jail.
Oh, jail, yeah, it's true. You might go to jail, right? That's a more extreme one, but it's definitely possible. Yeah, you might get a look, right? You might get looks from people, unfriendly or sort of looks of condemnation, right? That's never good. What else?
Shunned out of the society.
Yeah, you might be shunned, right? You might be discounted. So interesting, right? These little rewards and punishments are all about in or out, right? And so when we reward people, we pull them closer in. When we punish them, we push them further out. And again, it's very effective. I forget, this was during my anthropology days, and I read about a culture that does this, and I think it was hunter-gatherer cultures that do it. And I don't remember which ones, so forgive me for that. But you know, if you live in a hunter-gatherer group, if you're going to punish someone, you don't really have a lot of ways to punish them, right? Because everybody goes out and hunts and gathers their own food, so it's not like you can fire them. They don't have jobs. You can't keep them from getting food because they can just go out and get the food. You can't put them in jail because there's no jails and there's no buildings even. So how do you punish people in a hunter-gatherer group? Well, they punish them by ignoring them, right? And so if you do something bad, it's like, okay, you don't exist for 1 month. Nobody will look at you, nobody will talk to you, nobody will listen to you, nobody will say your name or talk about you, nothing. You are invisible for a month. And it's an easy thing to do, right, for the group, but it is brutal, right? Everyone ignores you. Like, you just do not exist. And it's, you know, it's very easy to execute, right? You don't need prisons or anything fancy like that, but it is a brutal punishment for, you know, for breaking a social norm or for violating the values of the culture, right? So again, we do this kind of all the time, right? Subtly, we kind of push people away or pull them in depending on whether they are following cultural values and cultural norms, right? Somebody's acting weird, or if they say odd things, or if they, you know, don't follow social norms, we're kind of like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna maybe not talk to that person so much, right? Or I'm gonna stand a little further away. And then when people are following social norms, we're like, oh, cool, you know, you look great today. Hey, man, you want to go for a coffee or whatever? And we kind of pull people back in, right? So this constant kind of pushing and pulling as we reward people for following the rules and as we punish people for not following them. Right? Right. Does that make sense? Does that sound good? You don't have to share this if you don't want to, but can you think of a time when you have been socially punished? You don't have to say it because it might be uncomfortable, but can you think of a time when you've kind of broken a social norm and you have been punished for it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah? Does anyone want to share? You don't have to.
No, it's fine. I just got ignored for like maybe a month or two.
Uh-huh.
I don't even remember what I did. I was really young.
Okay.
Yeah, but
It was like at school or whatever?
yeah, I said at school.
Oh, okay. And then all the other kids kind of didn't
I
want to.
probably did something like the other kids didn't like, and then you know what? Not, don't talk to that guy.
Yeah.
And then like that.
Well, and kids are very good at it, at that kind of thing too, right? Because kids are, they haven't really learned all of the other social norms that us adults have, right? So kids will be brutal. They're just like, you're not my friend anymore, and that's it, right? But kids are very good at using those punishments and rewards on each other to encourage people to follow the rules, right? And the other thing we should probably point out is that uh, can we agree that humans like it when other humans follow the rules? Do we kind of like that? I kind of think we do, right? Even though, if you go to the movies, it's always the anti-hero, right? The person who breaks all the rules, they're the cool one in the movies, right? But in real life, we like when people follow the rules, right? We don't like when people, even if they're silly ones, right? Mine is that, when I go to the grocery store and I've got my cart and I'm shopping for groceries, and people like leave their carts right in the middle of the aisle to go off and get something, and I can't get around them. It's like, come on, pull over to the side, right? And it's a silly thing, but it's it's just a little violation of a social norm, right? Or when you're on an escalator at the SkyTrain station and somebody like stands on the left side so that nobody can get up, and you're like, come on, people, right? Okay, I have a few more examples of social norms and violations, but let's take a little break first, and then when we come back, we'll look at those and talk about them, okay? But so far, so good. All right, break time. All right, and we are back. So we read a quick section of the text, learning about what beliefs are, what values are, and the last question, of course, are what are norms? And so what are social norms?
It's like a loop.
It's like a rule, okay? For what?
For everyone who live in our place.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a rule for everyone who kind of lives in our society, right? And what are they rules for? They're how to, how to behave, right? So this is probably not something that you think about very regularly because, again, we've internalized all of these social norms as part of our socialization process, but there are all kinds of social norms that we follow every day, all day long, really without even paying attention to it, right? Because we've been well trained by our cultures, right? Can you think of a social norm, a normal way of behaving? Okay, so what should you do or not do when eating? Yeah, you should close your mouth when you're chewing, right? Don't chew your mouth open, that's gross, right? Although that's culturally determined as well, right? But yeah, in many cultures, yeah, you close your mouth when you chew. That's a good one. And actually, Nicole, you demonstrated another one because I asked a question and you went like this, right? That's that's a social norm, right? If you have something to say, you raise your hand or you kind of wave your hand at people saying, "Hey," right? It's a social norm. So that was a twofer for you. What? Give me another one. What's that? Get. Sorry, I can just barely hear you. Greeting people. Okay, so what should we do or not do when we greet people? Yeah, when you see someone, either maybe for the first time or when you see someone that you greet them, right? There are things you say, right? Hello, how are you? I haven't seen you in so long. It's so nice to see you. What have you been up to, right? There's all these things that we know to say, right? Those are social norms, right? What else? Yeah. Yeah, it is a social norm to offer your seat to people who are older or people who have some sort of mobility challenge. Yeah, that's a normal thing to do, right? We're expected to do that. Not everyone does it, right? But I think it's a social norm. Yeah, I think that's a good one. Away says that yeah, we knock before entering, right? That's a common thing to do, right? Especially if a door is closed, then knocking is a polite thing to do. You don't just walk in, right? Especially if it's someone's house, right? You don't just walk into their house, randomly. You knock on the door. Reza says shaking hands, right? Yeah, that's a cultural norm. Although we've pressed pause on that one for a while, but yeah, before that, many cultures shake hands, right? And then, of course, some cultures there's kissing that goes on too, right? You do a little kiss on either side, or maybe you do a kiss on either side and then one on the lips. Maybe you don't do any of that, right? Those are cultural norms, right? What's that? Ask to. Sure, right? Yeah, so if something belongs to someone else, you have to ask their permission to use it, right? You don't just take it, right? That's a social norm. Basil says the way we sit, and I'd be curious to know what you mean by that. So Basil, maybe type in a little bit more about what you mean, and then we'll come back to you because I'd like to hear what you mean. Give me just maybe a couple more. There's tons of them.
They take my shoes when I to my house.
Sure, right? Are shoes worn in the house or not? Right? Who? Yeah. Well, who wears their shoes in the house? Yeah. Yeah. So and I'm not even like, I know some cultures have very strong preferences about the shoes are must come off kind of thing. But yeah, in some places it's kind of varies, right? Some people wear their shoes in the house, some people,
I would switch to like slippers or something.
right, slippers or something. Yeah, that's a good one, right? That's quite variable. Um, Basil says, yeah, in Kuwait they touch noses when they say hi, right? No, they don't. Well, maybe Basil does. I don't know. Away says saying thank you for a favor when done. That's a good one, right? When someone does something for you that they don't have to do, that is nice, it's customary to say thank you, right?
Respecting a
Respecting a
lady.
lady.
Yeah,
Uh,
like giving her the first right to talk to my.
Right. So we're the social norms often dictate that men sort of do things for women, right? Hold the door for them, give them their seat, push in their chair at dinner, things like that, right? Those are social norms. Two more. Give me two more.
Not pointing the feet at people older than you.
Right. So there's a cultural norm not pointing your feet at people older than you are, right? And again, that's a specific cultural norm. Here in Canada, that's not a thing. But yeah, in other cultures, that's an important way of behaving, right? One more.
Don't throw up trash. For example, a bottle of coffee that you drink, don't throw on the street.
Say that one more time.
Don't return the trash
Oh yeah,
on the street.
sure. Right. So if you have some garbage, if you have the paper bag from your muffin in the morning, what do you do with it, right? Should you just pitch it, or should you find a garbage can for it, right? Social norms are that you don't just throw it away, you put it in a garbage can. But of course, there's lots of trash blowing around out there, so not everyone does it, right? Let me show you just a couple more. We have a good grasp of this, but let me show you just a few more examples of breaking social norms, just to sort of drive home the concept, but also because it might be just a little bit fun, okay? What I want to show you is a few, oh yeah, this is just the answers to those. Oh, there. Just a few little clips from this television show called Seinfeld. Have you ever heard of this TV show? You've seen it? Yeah? Seinfeld was on the air for a long time. It was very successful. Lots and lots of people watched it. You know, it's if you have cable TV, you'll probably be able to see it shown because it's very popular. And Seinfeld is an interesting show because it gets a lot of its humor from social norms. Okay, so the show finds a social norm, and they get the characters to break it, and then people react to the breaking of that social norm. Or they find an instance where there is a social norm, but they're not really sure what the rule is. And so everyone kind of's like, what do you do in this situation? Do you do this or do you do that? Right? And they get a lot of their humor from identifying social norms and kind of breaking them or asking questions about them. And so I'm just going to show you a few short clips from the show that kind of demonstrate how Seinfeld does this. It'll show us some breaking of social norms, and maybe it'll be funny too, so it might be worth it. So for those of you who are online, of course I can't show Seinfeld on my channel because I'll get taken down, but I do have the videos again in Microsoft Teams. So in the same place that you found the textbook, you will find a short video with these 4 Seinfeld clips, okay? So I'll turn you loose to watch those short clips, and then we'll come back here and talk about what we've seen, okay? So they are in Microsoft Teams, same place that you found the textbook. You'll see a little video file called, I think, Seinfeld videos or something like that. You can watch them and then come back here. We'll watch them, and we'll do the same, okay? So we'll see you in just a few minutes. Okay, so let's start with that last one and we'll just work our way back really quickly. So, what's the social norm that's violated there? He has double dipped the chip, right? He dipped the chip, he took a bite, he dipped again, right? Um, so that's the and what does Timmy try to do?
Tries to tell him it's wrong.
Yeah, he tries to get him to follow the rule, right? He tells him, hey, this is wrong. You're violating a social norm. This is why we have the rule, because it's like you're putting your whole mouth in the dip. And then he tries to like physically stop him from doing it, right? Which is a little extreme, but it's funny that way, right? And the one before that, of course, was the hand washing, right? It is a social norm to wash your hands after you go to the bathroom. Prior to that, it was the Snickers bar, right? Which I think some people here enjoyed. So Oasis is converted now. He's going to eat his Snickers that way from now on. And maybe Simran too. Maybe there's something powerful about eating the Snickers bar with the fork and knife. It seems to be converting people. Let me ask this though: with the chip dipping, is that the rule? No double dipping? No double dipping? Never? Oh, unless it's your own personal dip?
When you're sharing the dip and
Okay. Not even with like family or friends?
with family, it's fine.
Maybe with family it's okay?
Even with my friends,
No?
It depends on the language.
Well, clearly it does here, right? Yeah, it's a little bit of, and one of the thing that, yes, Seinfeld's kind of good at that, right? Is playing with that idea and saying, oh, is this really a universal social rule or not, right? And so George and Timmy kind of have a confrontation about that very thing, right? About, how should this be done, right? What is the rule? So after we've seen those videos now, can you think of any other social norms that might come to mind? Sure, that's a great one. When you cough or when you sneeze, you are expected to cover your mouth, right? And even that's changed, because here you used to use your hands, and now they're telling you to use your, cough into your elbow, right? Or sneeze into your elbow or into your arm, right? So yeah, that's a perfect one. Oh, like when you walk, don't like drag your feet? Yeah, you're supposed to walk normally, right? Whatever that is. But yeah, you're not supposed to drag your feet. Basil was saying here when you sit, yeah, you're expected to, you don't sit with your legs like wide open, right? You're supposed to that's kind of, a little bit of an affront to people, right? So yeah, don't sit in that way, right? Yeah, we're expected to appear somewhat neat, right? We're expected to have our clothes are supposed to be clean, right? They're not supposed to be wrinkly, right? They're not supposed to look like they were balled up, in the back of your drawer forever, right? They're supposed to look nice, right? That's a social norm, right? Yeah, all of those things, and there's tons of them, right? There's tons and tons and tons of these social norms that we've just absorbed, right? And we, wind our way through lives or through our days, and we follow most of these rules, right? Without even thinking about it, right? Yeah. Okay. Anybody have any questions about norms or values or beliefs, or the punishments or rewards that go along with them? No?
Also,
Okay.
can you say like social norms are basically discipline?
They are discipline. I don't think they're the same as discipline, but they are, norms are ways in which society disciplines its members to follow the rules, right? It makes, society makes people follow the rules and do what they're supposed to do, right? And again, we say society, but we all have a hand in it, right? And we kind of see that happening here in the show, right? Where people try to enforce social norms, right? So Jerry has a little freak out because the woman he's dating wears the same thing every time. And I'm reasonably certain he broke up with her after that, right? So that's a social sanction, right? I don't know if he ever told her. I don't remember the episode. But yeah, she was wearing the same thing over and over again, and Jerry's going to say, look, I can't go out with you because you wear the same dress all the time, right? So, of course, the signal for her is wear something different, right? Here with the Snickers bar, Elaine at the end, she's like, what is wrong with you people, right? The rule is candy bars are eaten with your hands. So what are you all doing? Stop it, right? Stop this madness kind of thing. Same thing with Timmy and George, right? George double dips the chip. Timmy has a reaction and tries to get him to stop. And again, these are kind of extreme, funny examples of social norm violations and people correcting them. But we all do this all the time, all day long, without even paying attention to it, right? We constantly follow social norms, or when we break them or when others break them, we try to nudge people back into following the rule, right? We try to nudge them back into following those social norms. And that's just part of the way that humans interact. It's part of the way that humans cooperate and live in a group. Right? We have rules, and we try to get people to follow them. Right? And again, we all follow a ridiculous number of rules every day, right? All day, every day, without even thinking about it. Okay, that is all I will say for today. I will let you pack it up. I hope you have a good afternoon. Happy Monday, if that's not an oxymoron, but happy Monday. And I'll see you tomorrow, and we will do a little socialization exercise and see how that works out, okay? But I've got some things to show you and some questions to ask you and a little exercise for us to do, and yeah, so it'll be fun. Okay, that is all for today. Have a nice afternoon. I'll see you tomorrow.